Today we're going to talk about how every fight in Fortnite goes. Basically, there's typically three types of fights: a build fight, a defensive fight where you're in boxes and the enemy is pressuring you, or an offensive fight where you're attacking somebody else who's playing defensive. In this video, I'm basically going to show you in creative how each of these fights goes and how you can counter what the opponent does in every situation. Timestamps are down below if you want to skip to a certain part, but first, all the build moves that I'm going to be using in this tutorial can actually be found in the map that I'm in right now. It's called the How to Build tutorial map, and basically you just shoot the squares on the wall and it'll teach you different build moves with video and audio tutorials. You can attach the video tutorial to your screen so that while you're building around, you can reference it at any point. There's speed options and everything you need to get better at building. So the reason I wanted to make this video is to show you how all the moves in this map can be used in fights. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's start out with how a build fight typically goes and everything you can do to counter the opponent. So the typical way that a build fight starts is you're ramping up towards the enemy like this. You typically want to be sprinting while doing this so that you're racing to the high ground rather than just walking up like this. Make sure you're sprinting. But it gets complicated once you're at this point in the build fight. Let's say you beat your enemy to high ground. At this point, you're going to want to start going for piece control on them. They're right there on that ramp. Maybe you can get this wall on them and get a double edit and then set up a shot on them. But let's say that the opponent is the one that gets the high ground on you like this. At this point, you have a few options. You could, one, swing up high walls like this to kind of protect yourself from their shot, and also maybe get some piece control on them. The other situation is you could just box up like this, make a few boxes, and then they're going to start dropping on your wall. And that would initiate a defensive fight where you're kind of boxed up, protecting yourself. That's typically how it goes. You either get on the attack or you kind of call it quits if the enemy gets high ground and play defensive, and you can start setting up peaks. You know, if they're up there, you could set up a peak like this. If they're pressuring you from right there, you could set up a peak like this and just start playing defensively. We'll get more into that in a second, but there is other ways that build fights start. Let's say you're third partying a fight. In that case, you might just want to sneak up and look for a beam on them and then jump in if they get into a 50-50 together, like they're in the same box fighting it out. At that point, you could come in and third party, you know? But let's say that you're in this situation here. The enemy's on high ground and you're down here and you want to reinitiate the build fight. The way you would do that is you use what's called the sway retake, which you can learn in this map. The way that looks is you go ramp, walls, and then ramp on top. If they're above you, they're not going to be able to shoot you, so this is a perfect way to reinitiate the build fight, and then you're ramping up. And at this point, they're typically going to start ramping up as well. So that's kind of a way to reinitiate a build fight. All throughout a build fight though, you're just looking for opportunities to cone the opponent, you know, get them boxed up. The main thing you're looking for a build fight is cones, you know, getting them trapped on a cone because that kind of pauses them in the build fight and gives you an opportunity to box them. But you also need to make sure that you're protecting yourself. For example, if you're like this right here, they're going to be trying to look for a cone on you. So if you place the cone first and kind of get this wall in between, that can give you an opportunity to set up a peek here, edit through your cone, and get them here. But if you didn't get this cone and they got this wall, you're the one at the disadvantage. You're going to have to flip your ramp to get out of there. So that's how a build fight goes. It's just a constant piece control battle, but it all comes down to that ramp rush. Knowing how to initiate a ramp rush, knowing how to sprint while ramp rushing. And the best way to practice these build fights is via 1v1s, which in this build map, there's actually a 1v1 room where you can practice 1v1ing an opponent right here. The reason build fights are perfect for this is because it's the exact scenario, you know. In a build fight, you're supposed to do 190, 290s, and then you're ramp rushing up towards the enemy. They're going to be coming exactly at you the same exact way, so it's pretty much the perfect place to practice that ramp rush scenario. The second type of fight is the defensive fight, where you're boxed up and the opponent is pressuring your boxes. So the best way to play defensively is like this. You make just 4 boxes, and the opponent might start pressuring that wall there, okay? Let's say they're shooting that. You want to place this wall and kind of set up a peak from here. From here, you can pull out your wall build so that you can edit this far wall. If you don't have your wall build out, you can see unable to edit building. I can't edit that wall. But by pulling out that wall build, you could set up a peak like this and kind of counter them pressuring that wall. But let's say they do get that wall and then they take this cone and they're kind of, you know, working their way into your builds. What you could do at this point is, you know, kind of move to the side like this and go for a counter peek there or go for a peek right here. But the important thing about playing defensively is, let's say they take all these builds, they get this build too. All you got to do is back up one box, and then you can start playing the same game from here and set up a peek on them. They're going to try to work into your builds, and if it gets too risky for you, you just back up one and set up a new peak from here and start playing these 4 boxes. But the thing about playing defensively is you're going through a lot of builds and the opponent isn't. You're going through probably 5 times as many builds as them, so if they just play patiently in a fight, they're eventually going to get you to run out of builds and force you to make a rushed play. But a lot of times it's like the game of tennis, you know, you're playing the long game. You're just waiting for the opponent to slip up where you finally get a peek on them, and then you can go on the offensive while they're starting to play boxes. That's how it typically goes, but, you know, sometimes they might start pressuring from above. And in this case, let's say they're pressuring this cone above you right here. They start shooting this. You can back up here and set up a peak like that. But the important thing is, a lot of times they're going to try to push you back through these builds where they already claimed this cone and floor, and once they get you back in this box, they're gonna hope that you're unaware, double edit on you, and shoot you. So you need to be constantly aware of what builds are yours and what builds aren't, and reclaim the builds that aren't yours. So that's how playing defensively goes. The times that you would want to play defensively is if 1, you get weak in a fight, 2, if you're trying to play for endgame, or 3, if you're just overwhelmed. The opponent is pressuring you so well, make 4 boxes and play this slower paced game. But now let's move into how to play offensively. So let's say the opponent has 4 boxes right here. I'll just make these boxes real quick, and you're the one pressuring. You need to make sure that you're pressuring smart. So for example, you want to kind of block your angles, because if you get third-partied in a fight and get beamed, that's when the enemy's going to come after you. They're going to leave their boxes and start pressuring you. So that's step 1, is blocking your angles, but also make sure that you have an escape. A lot of times a defensive player is going to try to quickly edit out and box you. But if you claim these builds around you to start and the enemy edits this wall, you can flip this cone up and get out the side before they can piece control you. This is what counter piece control is. But you know, a fight like this can oftentimes go on for a really long time. Typically, if somebody's playing like this, I'm just gonna leave them alone because there's easier fights to take elsewhere. But if you do want to tackle a fight like this in solos, what you typically want to do is just start safe pressuring. So let's say you're pressuring their tops. Build these walls because they could edit those cones and jump and hit you, and then just start smacking away. Be ready, because at any point in time they might double edit on you. You need to build this wall quickly, or even have this wall built to start. That way you can just reset it and just start simply smacking away at this. If you see them back into those boxes there, then you can just do the same thing. Just start smacking here. While you're doing this, you want to try to look for opportunities to get them trapped ahead of time, pre-boxing them. So while you're doing this, if I was pressuring this box right here, I would also build this box here, you know, try to set up traps for them, because if you take this cone, who knows, maybe they'll go out that direction and you can get a shot. But also sometimes they might go out the back. You just want to be looking for those opportunities to get them pre-boxed before they go there. That's the way you're going to end these fights. Otherwise, it might just go on forever because they're just going to keep on making boxes, and you're just going to be in a constant cycle of pressuring their tops, especially if they play the way that I just taught you in the previous part of the video. So just to recap, the important things with pressuring are blocking your angles, counter piece controlling, and looking for traps. Those are the 3 most important things. Also, if you have a health advantage, don't even worry about playing safe like this. Typically, you're just going to want to try to look for opportunities to phase into their box. But you have to look out, because if they're playing 4 boxes like I just taught and you jump in right there, they might have a counter peek set up for you right here. So you have to be careful of when you're phasing in. You have to make sure that you're actually getting a good phase in. So that's how the typical fights go in Fortnite, how you can play in a build fight, defensive fight, and aggressive fight. Obviously, not every fight is going to go perfectly according to plan. There are always twists. You could play for 5 years and you'll still get surprised sometimes. But those are the typical forms of fights. Hopefully this video helps you get on the right track with fighting. Don't forget to try out the creative maps down below, the how to build map, how to piece control map, Forever Zone Wars. I've got everything you need to improve down in the description. More content on the way, so stay tuned and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.